Alright. And we're back up. Yep. Alright, so, we left off. Okay. We left off, a bit after the riddle party with Angie. Where we did all the puzzles with everyone in the family. Then we ran to Burncastle's puzzle, which I figured out. It was the Battler family theory. And then we ran around as Angie, experiencing that in the real world, thereabouts. Whatever you would like to call that difference. And we ran into Eva wanting to protect us. Eva Beatrice, the witch, not the aunt. And she kind of saved us from the evil Battler, Battler, Rudolph, and Curie group. And then we ran off a bit, followed by a switch back to Battler, talking to Burncastle, and basically them becoming friends, I think. And that was about it. Them just explaining some pleasantries. So I'm not quite sure where this story is going to keep going, but it continues, so here we are. Alright then. Battler. Why are you smiling with such a foolish, optimistic face? If you really think this final game will be nothing but a happy epilogue, then I'll have to invite you all to a proper game for bringing this tale to a close. Battler, you forget too easily. Don't you remember in whose hands lay the key to this final game? Oh yeah, they were like both game masters or something. Both game masters the same game. The inside of my nose itched. I've never regained consciousness to a smell before. Slowly, I opened my eyes. Wait, when did I lose consciousness in the first place? I don't remember going to sleep or falling unconscious. That's right. Burncastle invited me to come to a place better for drinking tea. That's when my memory gets hazy. And since the smell of black tea is what woke me up, where am I? Aurora's study. I hate to admit it, but her taste in tea really is excellent. I was sitting on what appeared to be a sofa in a dimly lit study. Burncastle sat across from me, and right before my eyes was a beautiful cup filled with hot, steaming tea. Isn't this place... I remembered. I've been here before. Wasn't it? How pleasant it is to see you again, child of man. Yes, that voice. Just hearing it brings back memories. Long time no see, my master. I didn't think I would get the chance to welcome you into my study again. To think that that game of yours is still continuing. Yep. It won't be continuing much longer. This is the end, the true final game. This was the study of Featherin Augustus Aurora, the majestic witch of theater-going, drama, and spectating. Once in the past, I was summoned by her in order to be her reader, her Miko. Don't tell me you want to read again. I wasn't the one who called you here. My Miko brought the two of us together. Why? Isn't it obvious? To show you the path that leads to the truth. It's also right. Burncastle promised us to lead us to the truth. Right. You'll show me the way, Featherin? Well, I am the witch of theater going, so I dislike interfering with the actors on the stage. So, would you rather watch Battler's boring play, or my exciting one that manipulates the branching paths of fate? I know you can't stand even a minute of boredom. As Featherin rocked her rocking chair, she looked up at the ceiling and chuckled. She clearly holds some key to the truth I seek. And yet, you are literally the one holding the key. I can do nothing but tell you where to find the keyhole, child of man. I don't remember saying anything out loud, but Featherin answered my question as though I had. Come to think of it, that's right. Featherin can read the thoughts of a mere child of man like me as easily as you can hear me speak. Well, I guess that'll help us get to the point quicker. Oni-chan did give me this key, but then he just said something about how I'd know how to use it when the time was right. He didn't say a word about what it was used for. Do you two know? What is this key for? Oni-chan said it was something very precious. Explain, my Miko. No way. You explain. You demand that your master explain? You've got to go on stage every now and then. Otherwise, you'll just get senile all the faster. My. And yet I just enjoyed some long overdue time on the stage when Angie was reader, which should last me several centuries at least. Tell me, what is this key? A physical manifestation of the decision you are to make. This tale, this game, will end when you are asked to make a certain decision. What you hold there is the act of your decision, embodied in the form of a key. The physical manifestation of my decision. Exactly. Battler was probably planning to end it by putting you in front of two doors, both of which can be opened by the key. Then he would ask you to choose which door to open. He must have told you that much, right? He didn't tell me anything at all. He just kept saying things like, "You'll know when the time comes." No one will tell me anything. Not Oni-chan, not anyone. I hate that, personally, when that happens. Battler probably wants to respect your right to make a decision of your own free will. But Angie, you should have at least started to figure it out by now, right? Figure what out? There's an answer Battler wants you to choose, isn't there? Those words made my heart jump in my chest. It was what I had been thinking. Oni-chan is clearly trying to trick me with a vague tale, almost like a daydream. That'll take me even farther away from the truth. At the 1986 family conference, everyone had a wonderful time as they faded away. Everyone is smiling down on you from heaven, so you don't need to feel alone, even in 1998. So give it your all and live on by yourself. I've clearly sensed Oni-chan's desire to end it like that. Every time I ask him about it, he dodges the issue and says something about how the decision will be mine in the end. That's right. It may appear as though Battler's giving you a fair choice, but he's actually scheming to get you to choose a certain one of those two answers. You've already seen the farce of a tale that he's using to do that, right? That bizarre Halloween party, with everyone acting so strange and friendly that it was almost sickening. I've already seen more than enough of that tale, so sickly sweet it makes me want to vomit. Where Ushimi Akinzo showered me with affection, where his children swore to support each other, where everyone was filled with happiness and hope. He's trying to trick me with those chummy scenes, so he can keep me away from the truth. He's such a coward. True, it might be easy to call him a coward from your perspective, but remember, if you are a player in this game, and if Battler's the game master, what does that imply? In the past, Battler was a player, and Beato was the game master, and they each fought for their own respective truths. So, what's happening this time? I'm a player, and Oni-chan's the game master. Could it be that I've misunderstood everything from the very beginning? Oni-chan said he'd tell me what happened on that day, so I assumed that following him meant I'd learn everything. Isn't that the same as, say, Oni-chan accepting everything Beato said about the crimes being the work of a witch? What a stupid mistake I've been making. So this game has always been a fight between me and Oni-chan? I'm surprised you joined in without realizing that. I can't remember if we had a choice or not in the matter. Battler really is sly. He quickly started up the final game without letting you realize that simple fact. Well, it was the same back in Beato's games. Battler was drawn into her game before he knew what was happening, before he even knew how to fight. That's why I taught him how. And now, it's exactly the same. You were forced to start this game before you understood anything about it. I've come to tell you the truth. To tell you who you're fighting against, and for what. I was too shocked to speak. And finally, I realized what I needed to accomplish in this game. I've always been passive. I was sure that Oni-chan would tell me everything, so I naively thought I just had to believe whatever he said. I was wrong. That's not what this is. This is a battle between me, the one who wants to reach the truth, and Oni-chan, who wants to trick me and chase me out into a 1998 where I'm all alone. All this time, I've kept on saying that Oni-chan was foolish and naive, and now that I see that I was more naive than anyone else. And yet, Burncastle didn't sneer at me. On the contrary, she looked at me with that cold gaze as if to say, "So you've finally taken your first step. Now, do you understand your purpose? And the purpose of that key?" I gripped the key Oni-chan had hung around my neck, and for a while I shook with an emotion that even I couldn't understand. Now that I know Oni-chan tricked me, it would be easy to hate him. But hating him would be missing the point. After all, this is a game between me and him. Oni-chan has done nothing but make the optimal moves for winning against me. If games aren't a playful way to communicate, if there's a process that decides who wins and who loses, then there can be no fair games. The best strategy is always to trick your enemy into defeat without telling them the rules, before they even know what's going on. In that sense, Oni-chan hasn't done anything wrong. He's using that sickly sweet illusion to trick me and force me out into a lonely future. They'll be the only ones having a good time in the cat box, and I'll be the only one chased out. Thank you. I'm grateful. I think I've finally been able to truly open my eyes. Please, don't hate Battler. After all, one-sidedly tricking your opponent is what a game master does. I know. Oni-chan took the best option from his perspective. That's all there is to it. So, I need to make the best possible move from my perspective. My goal is now clear. October 4th and 5th, 1986. What happened on Rakunjima on those days? I need to tear off the veil covering the truth. Nothing more, nothing less. Oni-chan gave me this key, probably because he wants me to put it into the keyhole of his choosing. That's why he keeps showing me the sentimental illusion. But I won't be fooled anymore. I'll open the door I want to open. Certainly, this kind of tale is more to my liking than one where Angie does whatever Battler says. Then this time, I'll let you run the show from here on out. Tell Angie. Tell her where the keyhole that leads to the truth is. Tell me, where's the keyhole? Very well. First off, have a seat. I'll go and get it for you. When Featherin rose from her rocking chair, my vision seemed to twist and bend. What is this, some kind of interference? Why now, when Featherin's about to show me something important? Why is my head getting suddenly... I dug my fingernails into my knees, clenching my teeth to keep from losing consciousness. However, the world just kept twisting more and more. Except for the feel of the sofa beneath me, I couldn't sense anything at all. Lady? Looks like they've arrived. I've got doubts about what's about to happen. The door opened, and Hachijo Toya appeared. What's going on? This isn't the world of witches, but the world of humans? I was sitting on a sofa, and Amaxo was behind me. There's no need to feel confused. Featherin and Hachijo Toya are the same being. To her, the difference between the two worlds is a trivial thing. To put it in the words of the theater lover, it's like having a slightly different background behind the stage. So there was no reason for me to feel hesitant. Should I call you Madam Hachijo this time? How complicated names are. Even though both of us are still here, just like before, you have to wonder what to call me. True. Well, you're the one with the many names. Calling you Feather would be a bit rude to you now. For an actor, the name of the role they act is only temporary. Precisely, child of man. Featherin? Amax's eyes went wide as he wondered what I was suddenly talking about. I ignored him and continued. So, what are you going to show me? As I spoke, my eyes were caught by that heavy-looking object she held under her arm. At a glance, it looked like an encyclopedia with a fancy binding. Do you know what this is? As Featherin spoke, she set the heavy object on the table. The first thing it reminded me of was a grimoire. The heavy book had a mysterious, mystical feel to it, like something Maria Onachon might carry around. And the most remarkable feature of it was the large, sturdy lock that held it shut. Why would someone go so far to keep people from reading a book? Why don't you take it and observe the back? The back? I flipped the heavy book over in my lap, and as soon as I saw it, I gave a small gasp. Eva, Ushimiya, Eva. Without a doubt, those words were written there in Roman characters. What is this? Aunt Eva's diary? Could this be that rumored? Do you know something about this? Just a rumor. It's always just a rumor. They say that President Eva had a secret diary, and that she always kept it locked up. They say she took it with her everywhere she went. At least, that's what I heard from some of the other bodyguards. A secret diary. Why is that here? It was in the hospital room where Ushima Eva passed away. This diary was hidden behind her bed, so it remained in that room for some time after her death before it was found. Then, by coincidence, it was probably found by someone who worked for the hospital, or else a patient or their family. Of course, by that time there was a huge movement dedicated to the Rakanjima mystery. A locked diary found in the hospital room where Ushima Eva spent her last moments would be absolutely priceless. The discoverer probably handed it over in secret to one of the witch hunters who would be able to accurately determine its worth. Luckily, the witch hunters who got their hands on this book were all noble and upright people, not content to boorishly destroy the lock and reveal the truth. They simply satisfied themselves with the fact that the truth of that day slumbered just on the other side of this mysterious lock. Thanks to that, Eva's diary has remained undamaged to this very day. It is already known that Natsuhi, wife of Kraus, the eldest son of Kinzo, sealed up all of her complaints and repressed feelings by writing them down in a diary, which she treated like a sort of charm. So, Aunt Eva did the same thing? It's possible, at least. Opening up a diary like this would be a pain, even if you did have a key. It's sealed up tight like a corset. Moxa was right. This wasn't a diary made to be casually opened and reminisced over. It's probably safe to assume that she used this diary to forget things by writing them down and sealing them away, just like Kushiromiya Natsuhi did. Then she brought it with her into her hospital room and hid it behind the bed without telling anyone about it. Don't tell me that diary is... Are you saying Aunt Eva wrote down what happened that day? By reading its contents, you will probably learn everything. However, we don't know where the key that unlocks it is. I jumped. Then I looked down at my chest. That's where my brother hung that key. Huh? It's gone. The key's gone. What's wrong, lady? What key? It's been hanging from my neck the whole time, hasn't it? I never noticed it. You got a key hanging from your neck? I understood almost immediately. In the world of humans, I haven't found the key. The me with the key is on the game board in the world of witches. Make me the me with the key. Gonna unlock this diary. Feather lifted a finger, spun it around, and the world twisted again. What was the point of that? When I returned to Featherin's study, the key popped back into existence, hanging from my neck. But at the same time, the diary on my lap popped out of existence. Where'd the diary go? It should exist somewhere on the game board. Since it is one of the keyholes you are to be given, it must exist. Did Oni-chan hide it somewhere? Since Battler wants this to be a game between you and him, it probably isn't hidden completely. What do you mean? Even if Battler thinks of the diary as a king he mustn't lose, there would be no game unless it exists somewhere on this board. In other words, it's somewhere in the Ushimiya mansion? Or you may already have been given an opportunity to witness it. Like how a swindler has already hidden a trap in microscopic letters on the first page of a contract you sign. If Battler follows the customs of the mystery genre as the game master, clues must be shown. So the choice that leads to Battler's defeat must have been shown. Enji, try and remember. You should have seen Eva's diary in Battler's world already. I think it was with Maria. In that instant, from the back of my mind, drifted the very first scene of this final game. Or the Beatrice one, yeah. In the chapel, a book was lying on the altar. A book with a lock on it. As soon as I showed interest in that book, my brother suddenly grew stern and told me not to touch it. That was Aunt Eva's diary. That's right. Ushimiya Eva's diary. The book of the single truth, with the truth of that day written inside it. The book of the single truth. Is the truth really inside it? After all, there's a chance that it's just something Aunt Eva... I'll say it in red. Ushimiya Eva's diary, the book of the single truth, has the truth of Rokkenjima during October 4th and 5th, 1986, recorded within it. Umineko no Nakokoto Nichiro, Nocturne of Truths and Illusions. Hey, hey, welcome, welcome. So, Bernkastel and Feathern just kind of gave us the gist of what they think is happening. And we're back at the party. The discussions over Bernkastel's reasoning game were getting passionate at each of the tables. At some point, each table had started competing to see which could solve it first. Bernkastel. Haven't Angie and Erica arrived yet? They should have been here by now. Erica's here. Want to make a bet on who arrives first? I can understand Erica being late. But what about Angie? What kind of pit did you toss her into this time? How rude. She's sitting on a sofa sipping tea. Hopefully the sort of tea you drink suits Angie's taste. Good point. How rude. That tea would suit anyone's taste. Erica would even lick the last drop of my tea from the bottom of a miso pot. That's Erica. Now part of me is dying to ask how miso comes into this picture. Still, it's Erica. This will be a long-awaited reunion. That's right. Come to think of it. Can't wait to see how long it'll take here to solve Bernkastel's game. This sort of game is what that kid's best at. She'll probably read it from start to finish 3 times, then just say the answer right away. Probably. I look forward to seeing her give the correct answer immediately with that smug look on her face. Come now, this is Erica we're talking about. She'll probably pull out some twisted logic and say that was possible for someone other than Battler's family. Good point. In fact, I'd like to hear her proud, twisted logic, even more than the right answer. Apparently, Battler and Beato were looking forward to their reunion with Erika. They had already dueled with Erika in 2 separate games, but now there was no distinction between foes and allies. They truly wanted to welcome her to this party after the show as a friend. It's called the after party. Still, it's a bit unexpected. What is? You know, it's surprising that you'd let Angie go this easily. Making sure that Battler and the others couldn't see her face, Lambda Delta sniggered. Is it really so surprising? Of course it is. I thought that, being you, you'd torture Battler with one tough puzzle after another before releasing her. Or that you'd at least try to give Angie some weird ideas and have her turn the game around in the end. And I thought I knew you better than anyone else in the world. So embarrassing that I was wrong. I'm sure it is. But don't worry. You obviously do know me better than anyone else in the world. Yeah, of course. After all, I love, adore, and understand you more than any other person in the universe. Star. Lambda Delta was flustered by Berncastle's apparently friendly words, which were very rare coming from her. Battler-sama, pardon me for interrupting your conversation. Angie-sama has returned. Oh? She's back? Great. So, is she okay? It seems that she was soaked by the rain, but Kumasawa is bringing her a towel now. When Battler heard this, he breathed a sigh of relief. Then he turned to face Berncastle, showing her a forced smile as though apologizing for still suspecting her just a little. Berncastle showed no reaction and simply continued to wear a blank expression with a slight smile. Angie-sama has returned. I'm back. Battler! Angie's back! Angie, I'm glad you're okay. I was worried. She stared at Battler as he dashed towards her with a relieved smile. Angie's expression seemed somehow indifferent. That Battler. Looks like he thought I had you hanging by chains in a cave or something. You've done similar stuff before. No. I didn't think you'd go that far. I was just having tea at the house of one of Berncastle's friends. It was delicious. Did it have dried plums or miso in it? Of course not. As Angie spoke bluntly, she walked right past her brother and exchanged a few whispered words with Berncastle. What is it, Battler? Oh, nothing. Nothing at all. If he said he was lonely because his little sister was being so cold, Beato would either laugh at him or scratch him. After all, Angie was a girl at that age. She has no age at this point. She might be in a bad mood for reasons a boy like him couldn't understand. Taking note of this, and having satisfied himself that Angie was okay, he made to walk away. Battler, Angie is calling for you.
What?
Huh? Oh, sorry. I've been trying to get your attention for a while. Don't ignore me. You literally just walked past him. I wasn't really ignoring you. What's going on with you anyway? You've looked like you were in a bad mood for a while now. I imagine Berncastle gave her something strange to drink and pretended it was just some rare sort of black tea. I have no business with you. Back off for a bit, would you? I want to talk to Oni-chan alone. Come. I may not look it, but I am the wife of the territory lord. We're already far closer to battlers than... Sorry, Beato. Would you mind leaving for just a bit? By now, Battler realized that Angie's issue was more than just a slight bad mood. Beato puffed out her cheeks as though she wanted to say something more. However, she just left it out for the sigh and walked away. Is this okay? It is. After all, this game is between me and you, right? I'm the player. You're the game master. No matter how many pieces get between us, in the end, it's still a direct battle between you and me. Well, it's true that I'm the game master, but it's not like I'm fighting against you or anything. This final game was held so you could be invited to the Rokkenjima of 1986. Games are played to decide who wins and who loses. There can be no game unless you have foes and allies. Don't try to trick me. What are you talking about all of a sudden? You had me totally fooled. At first, I actually thought you'd take me to that day in 1986. But that wasn't true. This has all been a farce you created, hasn't it? You're using the sentimental tale to dodge the issue and leave me confused. You're trying to chase me out into a lonely future with nothing but this cheap happiness as a parting gift. There's just one thing I've been after since the beginning. What happened on Rokkenjima that day? And the only answer you gave me was this game. This sentimental party of illusions. It's obvious now how you're going to try and answer my question now. I want the truth, and you aren't going to give it to me. Angie, listen, you've got it wrong. Don't try and trick me. This game is the final fight between me and you. I want the truth of that day, and you're trying to hide it behind an illusion. It's exactly the same. The setup is no different than those fights between you and Beato. I was about to be chased out of the game board with everything so vague and fuzzy because of you. Well, sorry, but I've already figured out that this game is a battle. I don't think you'll trick me so easily anymore. Angie's shout tore apart the peaceful atmosphere. The family members and illusions gulped and watched the scene, wondering what was going on. Beato tried to run up to Battler, but he motioned for her to stay back. What is it you want? There's only one thing I've ever wanted. The truth of Rokkenjima in 1986. That's all I'm looking for. The truth is sealed within the cat box. It can't be reached by someone outside the cat box like you. Is that why you're trying to trick me with a sentimental illusion? Yes, this is an illusion. However, I wanted you to remember this fun atmosphere, the harmony within your family. It's not about what happened on that island that day. I wanted you to remember the warmth of these family conferences, a warmth you forgot. That's just an illusion you're trying to impose on me. I'll reject it and deny it completely. There is no truth of 1986. The cat box is empty inside. You're looking for something that doesn't exist. I won't be tricked anymore. The truth of that day does exist. It was written down by the sole survivor and preserved to this very day. Battler's expression faltered for just an instant, and Angie didn't miss it. So he was hiding it after all. Oni-chan had been hiding the book of the single truth from me. Aunt Eva, for the first time since your death, I'd like to express my gratitude. Because you wrote down what happened that day, you gave me one last chance at learning the truth. Angie-chan, you have to listen to me. Everything I wrote in that diary is nonsense, and it doesn't mean... There's no point trying to deceive me. It's already been proven in red that your diary has the truth of that day in it. How could anyone but Battler, the Game Master, use the red truth? That's Aurora, isn't it? That's right. The Book of the Single Truth exists in 1998, the world of the future. Who else could perform the crucial role of confirming its contents with the red truth? I heard everything from Burn Castle. I've been fooled by you long enough. I don't want some sentimental illusion. I want the real truth. And no matter how hard you try to cover it up in 1986, I can expose it in 1998. After all, you are the Beatrice of 1986, Oni-chan, and I am the Beatrice of 1998. A cyclone rose up around Angie. It was a golden swirl of gold butterflies, just like the Golden Witch, Beatrice. I am Angie Beatrice of 1998, the final Golden Witch. No witch of the past can defeat a witch of the future. The cyclone of gold broke apart, and as gold leaves scattered across the room, the final witch who would inherit Beatrice's name in the future appeared. Angie Beatrice? You're the golden and endless witch. But I'm different. I'm the Golden Witch of Truth. No illusion can stand in my way. Yes, this is the end of Oni-chan's boring party. Now it's time for my party to start. I've even readied a game to liven things up. You're up, Aunt Eva. Huh? When Angie snapped her fingers, she vanished along with a swirl of gold butterflies. Replacing her in the middle of that cyclone was a girl wearing a dress, bowing modestly. You. That's pretty rude, you know? Inviting everyone to the party except me. You're Eva, the sole survivor of Rakunjima, and the Witch of the Future, the Golden and Endless Witch from 1986 to 1998. In the world of the future, Battler-kun's sentimental illusion is more fragile than a flake of snow on a lake. Okay, let's have some fun. Come, try to remember, all of you. Remember your endless theory-making. When Eva held her hand to the heavens, light gathered there and took the form of a bottle. Yes, a bottle. A glass bottle with no label. There was no alcohol inside. Sealed within it was a fragment that let off a pale, sinister light. Battler, this is bad. She must not smash that bottle. Okay, it's showtime. The bottle was slammed against the floor and smashed to pieces. As soon as the fragment within it touched the outside air, it flashed white and burst. At first, it seemed that nothing had happened. However, Eva grinned at them before becoming a cloud of butterflies and vanishing. At some point, Burncastle must have vanished as well. What did she do? It was probably a fragment she brought back with her from the world of the future. Perhaps we could call it the contents of the cat box in the future. What does all this mean? What? At that moment they heard a thundering roar. It was as though large chunks of hail had started falling everywhere. An earthquake accompanied that noise, and the whole mansion creaked. Dust began to fall from the ceiling. At the same time, it seemed as though the curtain-covered window glowed with a pale light. What on earth is going on? Kiri, look outside! What the hell is that? Everyone rushed to the window in response to her voice. Of course, Battler and Beato went too. Then they drew the curtains. looked at the scene outside and were stunned into silence. How beautiful! Kenzo's words echoed the first impression felt by all who looked out at the scene beyond the windows. Not all beauty is benign. They always say that beauty has thorns, yeah? Though everyone found the scene beautiful, they all sensed impending misfortune from it. Outside the window, countless small objects, pale, glowing fragments of crystals, lay strewn about everywhere like fallen hail. The word fantastical perfectly summed up the scene that lay before them in the glowing rose garden. I saw something move over there. Hey, is there someone over there? Wait, huh? A person just grew out of that glowing fragment. Seven Sisters of Purgatory. Battle formation. With those words of Lucifer's, everyone finally realized that they were being surrounded by danger. More goats, I guess. One by one, the countless fragments shook and burst, and large, dark bodies rose up from inside each. They were giants with goat heads. One after another, they appeared from the insides of broken fragments. Those fragments lay all over the rose garden in vast numbers, and made the ground glow, so that everyone inside was forced to shudder. 45. White area surveillance. My radar's filled with white. Or either being jammed, or the vast number of readings is making count of everyone, or it's impossible. Even as she said this, the glowing rose garden outside the window was being filled with giant goats. The fragments carrying the goats weren't just in the rose garden. They were spread evenly across the entire island. Not just the rose garden, but the entire area around the mansion was being covered with goats by now. Allow us to speak. Know that we are completely surrounded. Yeah, we noticed. What will you do now, Battler? Only one thing to do with uninvited guests. Let's chase them off. Who are these people? I'm guessing these aren't your minions, right, Beato? The goat forms they hold are probably just imitations of the pieces on this game board. They aren't Riche's, they're Leah's minions. This is something worse. I see. So they are manifestations of message bottles. Message bottles? The ones Beato made? Not quite. These are fragments of what people in the future have imagined. Endless possibilities are hidden within the cat box. Because of that, those outside the box can imagine the insides to be any one of an infinite number of things. It would seem those endless delusions are the true form of these creatures. What will those goats do to us, I wonder? It doesn't look like they're here to give us a handshake and a pat on the back. Those people. Just an aside, if you're discrediting the entire infinite theory of things in the cat box, while simultaneously saying you can't picture what's in the cat box, it's kind of a double standard. Those people. Those lowlifes making up and passing around stories, imagining the tragedies that might have unfolded around us on this island. They found it so fascinating that I never talked about the truth. They kept on creating tragedies one after another for their own enjoyment. If you just told the truth, they would all go away. I see. So they're fragments from the future, imagining the cat box of 1986 however they please. In the world of the future, any and all interpretations can and do exist. Unless we deny them, everyone will be able to claim that their own view is the truth, and they will remain on this island. Exactly. What a fix we're in. Looks like we're surrounded and fighting for our lives. What are they doing? They're eating. They're eating something. They're eating the roses? A crowd of goats was squirming about and doing something. If you look closely, you could see them sticking their heads in the rose bushes and munching away. And it wasn't just rose bushes. Light poles, the brooks of the flower beds, and even the stone paving itself. They were biting all of it, almost as if they were trying to eat up the whole island. No, they aren't just eating. If they aren't eating, what are they doing? That is not eating. They are eroding it, shaving away at the edges. The edges of the game board itself. They're eating the game board? In the world of the future, everyone believes we were swallowed up by tragedy today. That's why they won't accept the truth where we enjoy ourselves in peace. The truths of the past are subordinate to truths of the future. The merciless future fangs and jaws of those goats refuse to accept our truth and are eroding it, replacing it with the kind of truth they expect. Damn it. This is our truth. It's not for those people in the future who have nothing to do with us anyway, to rewrite as they please. The garden outside the window was now filled with too many goats to count, all chewing away. This repulsive scene stole the words from everyone's lips. They weren't stunned into silence. There was just no point in making a fuss and letting the goats know a certain fact. No point in letting them know that there was plenty of prey waiting in this bright, warm room. Prey that was softer and easier to chew than roses or bricks. That goat's here. He's looking at us. Silence. Don't make a fuss. It's coming this way. Dear me, this does not look good. They saw one of the newly born goats head slowly towards their window. There was already a huge swarm of them in the garden, so it was no surprise that when one of them looked around for new prey, it would see the light from this window. Its immense, eerie body slowly approached. As it grew closer, they could finally see it clearly. The eyes blazed, despite being cold, ruthless, and reptilian. Those cruel fangs and jaws could tear apart and crush anything. Any fangs that could chew through brick would hardly have a problem chewing through humans. Its massive body had to be taller than the windows themselves, and it was lumbering towards this window. If only this window was made out of special Ushirimiya bulletproof glass. I doubt even bulletproof glass would stop that thing. It's coming, it's coming, it's running towards us. Allow me to speak. Know that this window shall not be breached. The power of Cornelius' seal formed a shield around the glass. The goat was blown back, unable to touch the glass because of this power. Its weight made the earth tremble. They could feel that clearly, even inside. But that tremor had also drawn the attention of the nearby goats. A pack of goats started shuffling towards them, and a fight broke out as they each charged forward, trying to reach this new prey first. The window protected by Cornelius' seal would probably be safe. However, there were many windows in the Great Hall. For the first time, those windows became a source of terror instead of sunlight and a lovely view. Gertrude. Allow me to speak. Know that this window shall not be breached. Gertrude sealed another window. The goats trying to break in through that one were thrown back. But at the same time, they heard the crash of yet another window being smashed, scattering fragments of glass everywhere, The massive goats broke through the window frame and entered the building. Stay back. Everyone stay back. No, I think I'll stay next to the goat. On the first twilight, the sixth chosen by the key. Those words really were coming from the goat's mouth, along with a steaming, foul breath. However, it didn't get a chance to say any more. Forehead, neck, shoulder, chest, side, gut, knee. The stakes of the seven sisters buried themselves in deep, one after another. What rough and appetizing flesh for piercing. I'd hate to have to gobble up any more of these. The other windows shattered one after another, and several goats squeezed their way in through the window frames. Their mouths were still stuffed with the bricks they had just been snacking on. Each time they chewed, it made a ghastly sound, like bones being crushed. We will repel them. Siesta troops, prepare for close-range combat. Stop. You start firing away and we'll have all the other goats coming to join the party. Let's fall back to the second floor. We can seal the staircase. That'll buy us some time. Second floor? Everyone, upstairs. Hurry! After sniffing noisily as though scanning the smells around them, the goats started chewing on whatever chairs, tables, or curtains were close by. The goats would chew through anything to bits, as long as it was near them. If the others were careful not to attract the goats' attention, they would be able to escape from this place. The humans ran on ahead to the second floor, while the illusions, who were used to fighting, guarded the rear. The goats were completely absorbed by their feast on everything in the hall. By now, they were even brutally chewing away at the portrait of Beatrice, which could fairly be called the symbol of the Umineko family itself. Butler, the humans have all taken refuge on the second floor. Good. Delano, seal all the staircases. Gertrude and Cornelia will handle it. However, they need more time. All over the mansion there were loud beating sounds that might be called knocks and the sound of shattering glass. Well now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for work. Seven Sisters of Purgatory, right here. Let's go, you lowlifes. Tonight it's all you can eat. Siesta troops, halt all external tasks. Cancel automatic updates, accept no data, take no prisoners. Eisern, Jungfrau of the 7th District. By the Territory Lord's order, carry out your duty. I'll lend a hand. Leon, you're in the way. You go up to the second floor. But Will, leave this to us and go. You have your own job to do. Protect your family. I understand. Everyone, stay safe. The mansion was filled with the sounds of knocking, crushing, smashing, and chewing. The goats in the wave of destruction was drawing steadily closer. Lord Battler, Gertrude and Cornelia have finished sealing the other staircases. The large staircase here is the only one that remains. The other staircases are tiny, so they went fast. On the other hand, this staircase is huge. Looks like you'll have your hands full buying time. Lambda Delta spoke as though it was someone else's problem. It only took a glance at her face to see that she had no intention of lending a hand. Duh. Even so, Beato didn't scold her. This was the game between Battler and Angie. Lambda Delta was only a theatergoer who had been invited. Don't think badly of me. Even I'd die if I was torn apart by nothingness. Sorry, but I think I'll stick to being an observer. That's what you've always been. Though it is a shame that we can't ask for your help. Nah, she's being nice. Doesn't want to steal our show. Sure, let's call it that. As a Voyager witch, Lambda Delta could retreat from this game board of battlers if she wanted to. In other words, she was the only one who wasn't in trouble now. See you later. I think I'll watch this game between you and Byrne till the end. I'll be rooting for you. As you munch on popcorn? Of course. I think I'll have some soy sauce butter flavor today. Lambda Delta vanished with a pop. As soon as she did, a black hole opened up in midair and Gap fell out of it. Butler, reach it. Could you come here for a second? You should probably see this. Right now? Yes. Let's go. Everyone, we're counting on you to hold this position. When Gap snapped her fingers, a large hole opened up under Battler and Beto, swallowing them both. They were spat out into an inky blackness. Both of them were floating in the night sky. Rokkenjima lay beneath them. And as soon as they realized this, they shuddered. This is... It's not just a crowd. It's a sea. It was no longer a crowd of goats, but an entire sea of them. Just as Rokkenjima poked out from the ocean, the mansion was now poking out from a sea of goats. People in the future really are amazing. Just how many of them have imagined the tragedy on this island? There's nothing more than the worthless drivel of those outside the cat box. Let's clean this place up. Look over there. It's hard to tell, but look at the shoreline. Shoreline? It's easy to make out the harbor. Look closely. See it? Don't tell me. Yeah, you're probably right. They're eating it. Eating the whole island. Well, yeah, that's kind of what they start to do, right? Come, try and remember. Fragments from the future. If only you just chew up all the embellishments, all the illusions, all the fantasy. As Eva yelled this to the heavens, hovering about the raging sea, hail fell down with a pale glow. Each was an unlabeled bottle with a fragment inside. They poured onto the island, were smashed to bits, and the fragments inside them scattered everywhere. Every now and then, the fragments would split in two, then split in two again, and every single one of them burst and gave birth to a massive goat. To say it was like bamboo shoots springing up after the rain would be a vast understatement. The goats writhed about like bubbling, boiling water in a pot. They ate away at everything they saw. They didn't just eat the harbor, but the trees and rocks, the entire coastline itself. Hundreds, thousands, no, tens of thousands of goats continued to eat. They were chewing away at every bit of Rokkenjima, of this final game that Battler had prepared. And too bad, Battler-kun. The future wants a tragedy on this island. Even Angie wants the truth. Don't worry, I'll chew up all the embellishment, illusions, and fantasy for you. By now, Battler and the others had to admit it. The future wanted a tragedy, even if the truth of this island had been a gentle, peaceful thing. The future didn't want that. We never offered it. The truth they wanted was painting over the past. The past is such a fragile thing. Even the cat box is being chewed apart. Just who are these people? Are they really so determined to plunge us into tragedy? That's all I wanted to show you. Hope this helps a bit when you're making strategic decisions. Yeah, thanks. No, I feel like crap. And let's go to the study next, if you don't mind. Goldsmith wants to talk to you. Gap snapped her fingers and another black hole swallowed them up and spat them out in the study. Oh, what is it? Gap, if you're gonna drop me, at least do it on a bed. Grandfather, we're in trouble. There's absolutely nowhere left to go. I know. And even waiting out the storm from here is not an option. Ranabe and the others should be able to buy some time, but that's all. If they just hold up in the mansion, it would only be a matter of time before the swarm of goats got them. Trying to repel a few of the goats barging in the mansion would be like using a cup to bail water from a boat with a hole in it. We can fight defensively for a while, but it's only a matter of time. We need to think of something while we fight. Can we escape? Where to? Is there any way for us to leave the game board? The outside of the game board is beyond the range of our territory. Only a Voyager witch could leave. Only Burncastle on the Delta could do it. However, there was no way Burncastle would help. Even Lambda Delta had already announced that she would be an observer instead of lending a hand. So, there's nowhere left to run. No, there is just one place. Where? The Golden Land. I see. Is that our only option now? Indeed. The Golden Land is the most impenetrable place on this game board. If we wish to escape, it's that or nothing. These things are eating the cat box itself. For all we know, they might start chewing away at the Golden Land itself at any moment. What should we do, Battler? No point in thinking about it. We're retreating. If we take too long to make a decision, even that road will be closed to us. Evacuate everyone. How can we open the door to the Golden Land? I just have to open it. However, an immense wave of the anti-magic toxin is emanating from that crowd of goats. It'll take some time to open the door. So, we've only got to protect the study with our lives until the door is open. Just have to keep doing what we've been doing. There's one more problem. The door to the Golden Land cannot be shut unless two people close it from the outside. Two from the outside? What do you mean? As soon as she said this, Battler realized this must be the result of some agreement made between the three witches who are one. Normally, there's no need to go to the trouble of shutting the door, but it won't be so easy this time. Only you and Beto can fulfill the roles of shutting the door. Me as the Territory Lord, and Beto. Yeah, it sounds like the safest choice. Indeed. If it's just the two of us, we might even be able to protect ourselves. Okay, open the door. Beto waved her pipe, leaving a golden trail behind as she sliced the air vertically. Then the gap of the door to the Golden Land appeared. It looked like nothing more than a thin golden string hanging from the ceiling. If you looked closely, you could see that the string was getting thicker very slowly. The door to the Golden Land certainly was opening, but so slowly that you couldn't even tell if you weren't careful. At this rate, it would probably take quite some time before it grew big enough to let a person through. Grandfather, Gap, we'll need you to be our inner line of defense. Yes, there may be goats climbing up the outer walls. Very well. My rifle hungers for some prey. Understood. It'll be fun dropping those things into the abyss. I will. A giant was sliced at an angle, split into two parts, and fell to the floor, showering it with filthy dark blood and guts. Splendidly done. I'll let you take the next one. Countless massive goats which had forced their way in from rooms and windows all across the mansion wandered about in search of something to chew. Several of the goats noticed a group of people huddled around the staircase and lumbered closer, but they were pulverized by merciless attacks. Monofe's shields easily halted the charging goats, and Virgilia's magic spears were pinning the giants against the walls. Dillinor and Will's blades were also slicing easily through goats. The pinpoint strikes of the Seven Sisters of Purgatory could pierce the vitals off and finish off any opponent, no matter how large. The Jesser sisters were holding their own too. They had blasted enough goats to bits with one shot from their high-caliber firearms that you couldn't count the kills with both hands. Given the limited number of opponents, they were more than a match for these goats. However, they weren't just up against a crowd, but an entire ocean. It was like a pebble trying to face the approaching waves of a stormy sea. Hurry on that gun barrel replacement. Requesting cover from the Purgatory troops. So, you run out of ammo and you're nothing but rabbits. Lame. I don't want to hear that from a bunch of 7 paperweights who can only kill one person at a time, yeah? Yeah, keep them coming. Don't let us get bored. The hall was filled with massive goat corpses. As if in fear of this sight, the goats that came in one after another formed a wall, keeping their distance. Perhaps they think they're no match for us. I wish that were true, but it seems to be little more than wishful thinking. What are those guys doing? They're looking at us and whispering to each other. Apparently, they have the intelligence to talk together and cooperate. The goats surrounded them at a distance, whispering. Then they nodded at each other as though deciding something, and the whole group stirred. What are they doing? It almost looks like they're lining up in a different order. The enemy is changing its formation. It appears that the individuals with the greater destructive power are being gathered in the front lines. So what? Let's go. Yes, One-sama. Wait, something's wrong. Lucifer took aim at one of them, going for its forehead. The other 6 sisters followed her lead, trying to pierce the vital organs all over the creature's body. However, there was no sound of pierced flesh. The 7 Sisters of Purgatory were knocked back, unable to cause even the smallest wound. What? What just happened? Those guys are talking about something. The goats kept whispering the same thing over and over, as they slowly approached the 7 Sisters. All of them whispered unanimously. All fantasy is fictional. The 7 Sisters of Purgatory are illusions, personifying stakes for ceremonial sacrifices. They're actually paperweights. They're actually paperweights. As they whispered curses that denied the 7 Sisters' existence, the goats lumbered closer. Get back, Purgatory troops! We'll cover you! It's time you learned a lesson, goats. The golden bows of the Jesser troops mowed down the wall of goats with a shower of bright golden bullets. Some of the goats were torn to pieces, but some of them seemed completely unaffected. None of the goats who were uninjured all whispered as one. The Jesser sisters' Imperial Guards have Maria's rabbit dolls as their vessels. They're actually rabbit dolls. Maria's imagination, fantasy, fictional beings. All of the crimes can be explained by mystery. All fantasy is irrelevant. Looks like we've got lots of people who won't accept the existence of magic. And that means no magical attacks will have any effect on them. Does that mean all of our attacks will be completely useless? Kinda. Endless 9, yeah. If they don't accept that we exist, our attacks can't hurt them, yeah? Is that possible? We'll have to test it. Ranabe stepped forward, stamped on the floor twice, and a red barrier rose up in front of him. The crowd of goats dashed into it with a terrifying force. While some goats were blown away, several of them slipped right through the magical barrier. Ranave is a creature of magic, a creature of fiction. Genji is Ranave's vessel. He's an imaginary version of Genji. I see. So even my attacks will not affect some of them. There was no longer any point in Virgilia trying out her magic spear. Now that some of the goats had decided that her existence was fictional, she could no longer hurt them. Even these great demons and great witches, as well as high-level furniture and weapons, were overcome with fear of the crowd that surrounded them. A crowd that would not be affected by any of their attacks. What are we gonna do? We'll keep fighting until the end. You don't have permission to die in battle. Fantasy is all fiction. Fantasy is all fiction. Fantasy is all fiction. A shriek from one of the goats became a signal for the walls on to break. They pushed forward with gaping mouths and foul breath, each trying to reach their prey first, trying to return these fictional creatures to nothingness. Look out! Virgilia leapt in front of them and held several of the seven sisters who had fallen on their butts, overpowered by the ferocity of the approaching goats. However, even Virgilia was a fictional creature to these goats. They could chew through her like cotton candy. Madam, quickly. Ranave threw himself at the oncoming goats. Even he would be chewed apart easily. Knowing this, Ranave leapt forward. Even if my magic no longer functions, I am still the fiercely passionate and loyal man I always was. And furthermore, did you expect that I would simply sit by and watch a lady die? Ranave is fantasy. Ranave is fantasy. Ranave slammed his right fist into the side of the goat's face. As soon as he pulled it back, he swung his left leg into the goat's gut and spun around into a reverse roundhouse that caught the goat again. Ranave knew. He could do less damage than a mosquito bite against those who didn't accept his existence. This was the height of anti-magic defensive power. Endless 9. Ranave is fantasy, a fiction, an illusion. The goat swung its log-like fist with a sound like a storm. Ranave dodged by a hair. Had he been an instant slower, that massive arm would have crushed his head like glass. Ranave, stop this, run! I, Ranave, cannot help but rise to the challenge when I see a lady in a pinch. A bad habit of mine. Ranave grinned and tried to act tough. He had already sacrificed all he had. There was nothing he could do here and now, except become a shield to buy time. He had already chosen to abandon his life for this. Ranave is fantasy. He couldn't exist. He couldn't possibly exist. Illusions do not exist. They do not exist. Fantasy is all. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. The goats kept coming, trying to feast on Ranave. None had any pretensions of making this a one-on-one fight. Nothing mattered except chewing apart fantasy. Even just a nibble. As they gnashed those ruthless jaws and fangs, they closed in around Ranave. Ranave's foot hit something and he stumbled. At the same instant, several massive arms reached out and lifted him up. Ranave-sama! What are you doing, Jesters? Shoot them! If that could do anything, we would have done it already, yes. Everyone, please stand back. I should be able to buy you some time as they savor my flesh. However, I think they'll find that Ranave has quite a few little bones in him. An elbow rammed itself into a massive hideous jaw that were trying to chew Ranave's head. Of course, the goat did moan, but that did nothing but deprive just one goat of his right to the first bite of Ranave's head. Many jaws opened wide, trying to crush him and throw him down into those heartless stomachs, which would permit no cheerful illusions to exist. I won't accept fantasy. Won't accept. It's possible to explain everything with mystery. Possible. Fantasy is fake. Everything is mystery. All of the many arms that lifted Ranave up were sliced off. The seven sisters used this chance to fly forward and grab Ranave, dragging him back. Which of you mentioned mystery? Does Dolores' blade work on them? I see. If our foes are calling it a mystery. Blood-red longsword in hand, Dilliner slowly walked forward. Behind her walked Will, tapping his back with black blade. If you don't think this is a fantasy, then let's have your theories. I cannot wait to hear your explanations. The crowd of goats stepped back. Though they had been so vicious against the illusions, they stepped back when faced with this pair wielding swords of mystery. There have been a great many closed room murders on this game board. Choose whichever you please and we'll parry all of your attacks. No, we don't have to defend anything. Indeed. The purpose of a mystery is to offer a challenge. There's no need for us to play defense. Do you get it yet? You're the ones in the hot seat now. Blue Truth cut the goats apart. That blue truth dwelt within each and every one of their riddles from Beato's game so far. What about the closed room with the chain? First game, second Twilight. What about the closed room of the chapel? Second game, first Twilight. What about the trick to killing Nancho? Third game, ninth Twilight. There is no end to the blades. The countless riddles Beatrice had left behind became blades, challenges that tore the goats apart. They wanted to deny fantasy, and they would have to make a counter-argument. They would have to deal with every single trick as a mystery. However, while most of the goats called themselves anti-fantasy, they hadn't thought up any answers for the mystery. Though every now and then, goats' answers did appear. Someone outside the Ushima family was hiding on the island, and Nox is first. It is forbidden for the culprit to be anyone not mentioned in the early parts of the story. There were multiple culprits all working separately, and it just happened to look like a single culprit. Van Dyne's 12th. There must be but one true culprit. You mean everything but that is forbidden? Boring, right? To have a genre like that. Personally, I think mystery should be more flexible. The 10 Nox Amendments and the 20 Van Dyne rules are behind the times. The definition of the mystery genre should change with the era. And now they get uppity. Perhaps we are behind the times. In that case, let's see if you have any theories that can satisfy us. Come. The whole crowd of goats charged them. In their fangs, each of them carried theories to crush Beato's closed rooms. The bodies of these goats drifted from those who had become corpses so easily. They had mystery-style answers to several closed rooms, so it would take several blade hits to give them a fatal wound. However, Beato had left many blades behind. All of them were exceedingly sharp, so the pair of inquisitors didn't think this would be a desperate battle. This is mystery. The goal is to use all your imagination and knowledge to challenge each of the riddles head-on. Doing so is the greatest pleasure of the mystery genre. So they laughed. Both Will and Dylanor laughed, with smiles of admiration at the theories the goats had put everything they had into. They countered with blades from all the closed rooms. The crowd of goats was no longer an encirclement, but a great wave threatening to swallow the pair up. And yet, the pair repelled the enemy without giving an inch. They resisted firmly, cutting through the wave of wailing goats. It was like an ice-breaking ship knocking a path through a frozen sea. They entered the closed room through a hidden passage that no one else could use, and Nox is third. It is forbidden for hidden passages to exist. After the hidden passage was used, it was welded shut and became unusable, so no hidden passages existed at the time of the inspection. Nox is eighth. It is forbidden for the case to be resolved with clues that are not presented. It's good artwork. These are all fake murders, so no one is actually dead. So all closed rooms were constructed by the so-called victims. Dylanor hesitated for just an instant. After all, this cliched and simple theory managed to get around both Beato's closed rooms and the Nox commandments. Dylanor saw nothingness inside the ghost's massive jaws. Van Dyne, 7th. It is forbidden to have a crime without a corpse. The ghost's jaws seemed to close around Dylanor's head. However, the upper and lower jaws were no longer connected, so the upper half merely slid off to the side. I guess even the great Nox forgot to forbid fake murders. There are many splendid mysteries besides murder. The goats weren't about to back off and let the pair have a nice long chat about the mystery genre. The next massive figure immediately enveloped them. Will's blade drew a diagonal slash across its chest, but it only cut through its clothes, leaving no wound. The 20 wedges don't work on this one. Dylanor also hit it with her longsword, but still it just cut its clothes without leaving a mark on its body. Could this goat have a theory that doesn't violate Nox or Van Dyne? Nox and Van Dyne are meaningless. All closed rooms can be explained by a single solution. After all, in an attempt to stop the goat from saying any more, Will and Dylanor hit it with blades from every closed room, as well as stakes from the 10 Commandments and the 20 Rules, but none of them had any effect. Slowly, the goat clenched its massive fists together and raised them up high. After all... Will! With a roar, Will slammed into the goat giant with his body. Though its massive bulk bent back slightly, Will was still leaping into a death trap. However, he hadn't done so, he wouldn't have been able to protect Dylanor. The goat grabbed Will. It lifted him up and held him high in the air. It was like a little kid showing off his favorite toy and waving it around. Let's hear your theory. If I'm to hear a great theory before I die, it'll be a fitting end for a rite. Van Dyne and Nox are useless for making theories. The goat's massive hands closed on Will like a vice. All the bones in Will's body were creaking. Let's hear your theory. There is no need for a theory. What? After all, making theories for any of Beatrice's games is a waste of time. What do you mean? This isn't an orthodox mystery, so thinking about it is just a waste of time. I won't accept Beatrice's game as a mystery. There are no answers to the tricks. It's all just an illusion. Thinking is just a waste of time. Will's head was lowered so his face couldn't be seen. However, the arm of the goat holding him was shaking. The embrace of those log-sized arms with superhuman strength was being slowly pushed away by Will's shaking arms. Thinking is just a waste of time? You say that and you call yourself a mystery novel reader? The mystery genre is like chivalry. You fight with the noble rules you've created, with pride in the stance you've taken. Is it worth being a coward if it'll help you win? Does losing make the whole fight meaningless if you fought with everything you had? This isn't about winning and losing. It's about plotting the will to fight, even in the most dire circumstances. The goat's arms were now spread wide, and it looked as though Will was now the one pushing it back. Will's face was covered in shadow and couldn't be seen. People like you, who call themselves mystery readers even though they never even try to solve the mysteries. You're the ones I really can't stand. Will slammed his forehead into the goat's now unprotected head. If you call yourself a mystery reader, be proud to join in on a battle of wits. If you call yourself a mystery reader, it's about time you realize giving up is nothing to brag about. Will hit it with his head over and over again. His forehead had been torn apart by the goat's fangs, but he kept on hitting it. Van Dyne and Knox may be behind the times. The mystery genre does progress with time, like the world around it. However, there's one thing that never changes. That is pride. What is a knight proud of? Not victory. He's proud of his courage, which lets him stand up to anyone without fear. Will couldn't forgive the kind of coward who could turn tail from a fight and then brag about it. People who call themselves mystery readers but who have no pride are the only people Will just can't stand. The goat, unable to put up with this anymore, threw Will down to the floor. Then he lifted his fists again, determined to crush Will to pieces this time. Come, you probably will beat me to a pulp, but that'll be no victory for you. You'll destroy your own pride with your own hands. Pointless. Pointless. This is no mystery, so why make theories? Thinking is just a waste of time. Useless, useless, useless. Die, die, die. A fist like a cannonball swung down towards him. It was the very last thing Will saw before he shut his eyes. In this game, if you stop thinking, in this game, if you give up, that means you lose, right? Battler smashed his fist into the goat's mouth, and smashed teeth bounce off the ceiling. Battler-sama, if you stop thinking, it means you've given up on the story being a mystery. Which means, as far as you're concerned, this game is a fantasy. Battler lifted up his arm. Realizing this was a signal, Lucifer and Chester 00 jumped. If you stop thinking, you don't deserve to be an actor on the stage. Stop trying to sound smart and go eat some popcorn from the stands or something. The goat lifted his fist again, then swung it down at Battler like a hammer. And you've surrendered to fantasy. That just makes you another target, yeah? It's the same as acknowledging that we exist. Begin recognition of hostile elements. Mark all targets vulnerable to magic attacks and HMDs. Kids who surrender to fantasy get to deal with us. And if you have a theory, we will hear it out. We'll welcome those people with open arms. Out of respect for them, we won't hold anything back. Oh, but it would seem that this is Battler-sama's time to shine. Well, I'd like to listen to all your favorite theories, both mystery and fantasy. This isn't your game right now. No matter how much your future vagrants try to deny us, this is no time for me to be defeated. The golden glint gathered in Battler's hand. It was so bright that the whole hall was bathed in gold. Golden butterflies flitted about, as though the whole room was being swallowed up by the golden land. Battler lifted his golden longsword
ミ
high.
ステリーもファンタジーも
Feel free to challenge
レア
Beto's
とのゲ
game
ー
as
ム
a
に挑む
mystery
必要
or
は
a
大いに
fantasy.
歓迎もする
I welcome it,
だが
but I'm not gonna let you deny this final game of mine.
眠る者の
Feel the shame of your indiscretion, of impugning the honor of those who have passed away. A slice of the golden longsword flooded the hall with a sea of golden light. Then the whole group of goats clambering about the hall turned into clouds of gold butterflies and scattered. Even so, only about 100 of them had been wiped out. Before long, the massive crowds of goats outside would probably come pouring in. Why didn't you just start with this?
ガートルードたちの封印はもう
The
少
seal
し
Gertrude and the others are working on will be finished in a bit.
進まない
Sorry, but I'll have to ask you to hold out here a little longer.
もちろんだ
Of
よ
course,
バトラ
Lord
ク
Battler.
それくらいしか
Otherwise, we wouldn't get to show off.
見せ場はないし
お前らも少
You
し
know,
は戦って
you
もい
two
い
could
んだ
try
ぞ
fighting just a little. Not to say.
だって
But
私たち
we're
司会者
just
だ
the
し
MCs. Their excessively blunt refusal drew a few strained smiles. However, it had lessened the tension in the room just a bit. Oh, so did the bards.
バトル様ここは
Battler
私たち
Sama,
にお任せを
leave this to us.
これ以上の
We won't allow the erosion to proceed any further,
そして私たちに
and not one of us will be
決
left
してかけ
behind.
ることはありません無論です
Of course,
なぜなら
we are all
私たち
precious pieces of Lord Battler's game board.
大切な駒なの
The
です
Seven Sisters of Purgatory, the Chester Sister Corps, and everyone else nodded forcefully.
あ
Yeah,
あ頼むぜ
I'm counting on all of you.
エンジのための
We'll
最後の
definitely
ゲーム
protect this final game I made for
絶対に
Angie.
守るぞ下はなんとか持ち
They're
こたえて
managing to hold their ground down below.
黄金鏡
The door to the Golden Land continues to open slowly.
まだ時間が
It
か
will
か
still
る
take some time, though.
そういうわけだ
That's right.
俺たちの時間
We'd
を
better
稼
start
がない
buying some time ourselves. The sea of ghosts, the sea of goats that covered the ground below them was jostling around more and more. By now, even the sea surrounding the island had disappeared. The horizon was gone, and the chewed-up island was now floating on an eerie emptiness like space. The goats that flooded the edges of Rakanjima seemed to be spilling off the sides.
このゲーム版は
Looks like that's it for this game board.
ゲームマスターが
As long as there's a game master in pieces,
いつかゲーム
the game board can always be laid out again.
ゲームなど
As long as you have two people together, you can create any sort of
何だ
game.
ってできるのだからな
そうだ
True. Where on earth is Angie?
エンジの
例のあれは
Where did you hide that?
そうだ
That's right.
礼
The
拝
chapel.
堂礼拝堂はどうなってる
What's happened to the chapel?
まだ残っている
It's still there. The chapel looked like a white building floating in the pitch-black sea of goats. Yes, this was strange. There's no way those goats who consumed everything would go out of their way to avoid just the chapel.
エンジはあそこだ
That's where Angie is. Outside, the chapel was a sea of goats. Very soon, the earth around the chapel would be eaten away, and would probably end up floating on nothingness. The rampage of the goats, as they devoured everything and recited the tragedies they had imagined, was truly making a lot of noise. However, none of that reached inside the chapel. Angie finally broke the magic seal on the entrance and stepped inside. The seal was supposed to be unbreakable by anyone. However, in the face of Angie Beatrice, Witch of Truth, the one who sought the truth and could sweep aside all forces that prevented her from finding it, no barrier was absolute.
あれね
There it is. A single book, tightly locked, rested on the altar. It was the hidden diary that Ushima Eva had continued to write in, even in her later years. The book of the single truth. It was the one Featherin had shown her in the world of 1998. This time, I have the key. I gripped the gold key that sat in my pocket, the key Oni-chan gave me. As I approached the altar, I saw that the Book of the Single Truth was wrapped in a strange bending of the light.
レールンカステルの言っていた
So this is that seal of the Game Master that Burncastle talked about. The Book of the Single Truth was sealed in something like a crystal. It was a seal made by the Game Master's authority. This was on a different level than the breakable magic seal on the chapel door. No matter how Angie used her powers as a Witch of Truth, this couldn't be broken by anyone except the Game Master. However, this time Battler wasn't the only Game Master.
悪いわねお兄ちゃん
So sorry, Oni-chan.
レールンカステル
Burncastle is a Game Master too.
乗っていって封印を
I just
解い
need
て
to
もら
take
えばいい
this
だ
to
け
her
の
and
話
have her break the seal. Angie slowly approached the altar.
エンジ
Will Angie really do
は
as
素
you
直に
say?
そなたの言うことを聞くだろうか
俺の
This
妹
is my
な
little sister we're talking about.
素直に
So yeah,
聞かねえだろうな
probably not.
ならばどうす
Then
る
what will we do?
力ずく
Looks
し
like
か
we've
ねえ
got
だろう
nothing to
ぜ
go on but brute force. At that moment, a fierce impact hit the pair of them. Beata was flung away, and Battler was sealed inside a massive crystal that extended up to the heavens.
くそ
Damn,
なんだ
what
こ
the
りゃ
hell is this?
バトラ
Battler, what is
な
this?
んだこれは
It was a barrier, a massive cage of crystal. Battler was shut inside a crystal cage like a tower, so large that you had to look up to see the top.
ベアトお前は
Beata,
エンジを頼め
I need you to take care of Angie.
そなたはどうする
What will you do?
これを一人で
Can you
内
break
側
free
よ
from
り
this all
破
by
れるという
yourself?
のか
From the inside?
一体は
Is this a closed room barrier?
誰がこんな
Who
も
could
の
have? There's only one person who challenged me with a closed room.
どうやら
Looks like our final guest has
最後の
finally
敵が
arrived.
ようやく到着したようだ
まさか
You don't mean...
行け
Go and take care of
エンジ
Angie.
を頼め
Beto left Battler to handle this on his own and headed for the chapel. Battler took a deep breath, then smiled daringly. I've been waiting for you.
退屈だったか
Was it boring in that depths of oblivion place?
の深淵とやらは
The answer was a laugh. Yeah, that's right. That laugh is enough.
元気そうじゃねえ
Looks
か
like you're doing well.
退屈ではありません
It wasn't boring.
だって
After all,
信じてました
I
から
believe.
だろうな
I'll bet you did.
俺も
I believe too.
信じてたぜ
Battler flung off the cape of the Territory Lord. It would only get in the way, and it would be a rude way to welcome his final guest.
あの暗い深淵
Those dark depths
次にあなた
were
に
the
再会
perfect
で
place
きた
to
な
think
ら
up mysteries I
どん
could
な
fight
ミス
you
テ
with
リー
when we
で
met
戦ってやろ
again.
うかと思案する
この水晶の檻は
So this crystal
俺た
cage
ち
is
の
the
決
ring
闘
for
の
our
リング
duel.
ってわけ逃げ場なしの
A chain
Chain
deathmatch
deathmatch
with
ってわけ
nowhere to run.
思えば私たち
Now that you mention it,
いっつも
we're
チェーン
always
の
fighting
密
over
室を巡
closed
って
rooms with
戦って
chains.
ましたね
ならそうするか
Let's use that.
まさにチェーン
Make it a real
デスマッ
chain
チってわけ
deathmatch.
私に準備はありますが
I'm prepared.
あなたはどうです
But what about you?
あるさ
I am. I told you,
言ったろ
didn't I?
俺も信
I
じて
believe too. At the same time, they both brandished their mysteries, sealing the other in a chained closed room.
来い
Come, Fudo Erica.
楽しませてもらいますよ
Entertain me, Butler Swam. Shit. Hello, Erica. Do you come here often? At the same time, they were both sealed inside a closed room, locked with a chain. Of course, it was easy to set and unset the chain from the inside. However, stepping into their opponent's chained room would be difficult. They were fighting to the death with two chain closed rooms at once. There could be no better closed room duel for these two, who had battled with theories concerning chained rooms so often. Fudo Erica committed suicide, died in an accident, died of an illness, died by some reason other than homicide. It wasn't a suicide. It wasn't an accidental death. It wasn't a death by illness. I really was killed by you, Battler Song. It was a murder committed by slipping poison gas through the crack of the door, by filling the room with water and drowning you, by sucking the oxygen out of the room and making you suffocate. There was no poison gas. There was no drowning. There was no death by suffocation. A closed room murder with poison gas, death by drowning, suffocation. Crazy, right? It's funny, isn't it? Good though. Ushimiya Battler committed suicide. He died in an accident. He was killed by an illness. Time for me to test your closed room. Red truth. Ushimiya Battler was stabbed to death. Let's say the weapon was a knife sticking right into his back. Good. Nothing beats a classic closed room. Why don't you try it too? I'll take that challenge with the red truth. Fruto Erica was stabbed to death. The weapon was a knife stuck right in her back. Interesting. I'll tear your closed room to bits. What's this supposed to be? Battler is busy at the moment. For now, I shall be your opponent. Beta would seal the chapel with a closed room barrier. Unless that riddle was smashed with blue truth, Angie wouldn't be able to leave. After shrugging impatiently, Angie finally faced Beato. This might be the first time I fought you directly. Yeah? Oh, is it now? Very well. Let's see what you've got. However, Battler isn't here at the moment. When he's not around, I sometimes forget to hold back. What a coincidence. I feel the same. I killed you inside a perfect closed room with windows, doors, and all of the methods of entry or exit blocked. Okay, I'll play along with your game. Repeat it. Umineko no Naka Kodo Nichiro. Nocturne of Truth and Illusions. So, she canonized internet trolls into her story. Interesting. I'll keep going. And then, you see, we'll set it up so that among the works entered in Company X's Mystery Novel Contest, yet another one of the great Hachijo works will appear under a false name. Of course, we'll then move on with the movie version and the TV drama bundled in. Don't do it, don't do it. We here at Company X would be honored to accept your manuscript. Am I getting prize money out of this? But of course, the 10 million yen prize for Company X's first mystery novel contest will all go to you. And much more besides. Splendid. You've got my interest. That's why I've decided not to write up a manuscript for you. Eh? How'd you just... Why? Everything had seemed to be going so smoothly up until then, so this sudden refusal made the people from the publishing company fall over in the sofa. This little scheme of yours is far more interesting than the manuscript I wrote. In that case, it wouldn't be fitting to hand it over to you. It was always a worthless story. I wanted to lure my ignorant readers into loading it, making them feel as though they'd performed some magnificent reasoning. I was hoping that you children of men would recognize the irony and laugh at your own mistake. But it looks like you've taken it seriously. Yes, I can say I'm ashamed at my own failures as a writer. Of course not. Please forgive us. Please let us use your... I have no need for money, but some pet food would be nice. Pet food? Oh, for your cat. There was a rumor that you had a cat who liked dried plums. Yes, as you wish. Quickly, let's have a high-quality assortment of dried plums brought in here. She only eats the ones that are packaged separately at 200 yen apiece. At this rate, she'll die of high blood pressure. She snacks on kimchi and spicy miso all the time too.
舌のいかれた猫であ
Really?
ること
There must be something wrong with that cat's tongue. Meep. The cat meowed in objection from where it lay on top of the bookshelf.
この原稿を預
I
けませ
cannot
ん
give you
が
this manuscript.
御社大賞
Why
用
don't
に
I write up a
新しい
new
原
one for
稿
your
を執
company's
筆しましょ
contest?
うただし
However,
私
I
の
won't
名
write
前
it
では
under
書
my
きませ
name.
ん御社大賞の
It's
推
estimated
定
that
投稿
thousands
数
of
は
manuscripts will be
1000 件
sent
以上
in for your contest.
その中
contest.
から私の
If
特
you
命
manage to
原
pick
稿を
mine out
見
from the
事に
pack,
付け出し
and if you also find it
そ
deserving
の
of the
筆柄
prize,
を大
then I
賞
would
に
be
ふさわ
happy
し
to
いと
continue
思
our
ったなら
discussion just now.
それでいかがか
How does that sound?
玉光
Just the honor of receiving your manuscript is more than enough.
幸福に存じます。
あなたたちはいつもペコペコ
People
していて
truly are amusing,
実に面
fawning
白
and
い
cringing all the time.
だが今日はもう飽き
But
ま
I've
し
grown
た
weary of this for today.
お帰りなさい
Leave now.
人の子に会う
Meeting
の
with
は
children of men can be
実
so
に疲れる
tiring.
ご拝謁
We are deeply grateful for your kindness in allowing us this meeting.
深く御礼申し上げまする。
I can just perfectly picture the businessmen doing rapid fire bows. A servant guided the people from the publishing company to the door. In the study that was now finally quiet, Hachijo Toya let out a sigh, slumped down in the sofa, and gazed at the ceiling.
疲れるが
It is tiring, but the stimulation of talking with a child of man isn't such a bad thing, in small doses.
定期的に人と会いなさいよ
It's good for you to talk to people every now and then.
ボケるわよ引きこも
You'll
って
go senile if you stay shut in all the time. The black cat leapt from the bookshelf and landed softly on the carpet. Then its form silently twisted and became that of Burncastle.
うむ
Indeed,
あやつらは
they
実
certainly
に
can be
面白い
entertaining,
たまに招くと
and
退
writing them
屈を
over
忘
now
れ
and
られ
then
る
may go a long way towards alleviating my boredom.
それに免じ
At any rate,
気が向いたら
I
原
think I
稿
will
を書
write
いて
that
やることと
manuscript
しよう
when I feel like it.
そなたに土産も持ってくるそうだし
It
な
sounds like they'll even bring a gift for you.
何を餌っ
What's
て
all this about pet food?
失礼ね
How rude.
餌であろう
Well,
か
that's what it is.
ほれ
Hachijo picked up a jar from a shelf, then took a dried plum out and threw it into the air. In an instant, Burncastle turned back into a black cat, caught it in midair, and started munching away.
先生お
Madam
客様がお帰り
Hachijo,
になりました
your guests have departed. A servant knocked on the door before making this announcement.
ありがとう
Thank you.
あれが目を覚ま
Let
し
me
たら
know
教
if
え
that
て
one
くだ
wakes
さい
up.
かしこまりました
As you wish.
何かお紅茶を入れま
Would
し
you
ょうか
like some tea?
いえ
No.
少し執筆
I'm
をし
gonna
ま
write
す
for a bit.
しばらく放って
Please
お
do
くよ
not disturb me.
はい
Yes, ma'am. After waiting for the servant's footsteps to disappear into the distance, Hachijo moved to her desk. The desk certainly looked as though it belonged to a great writer, with pages of manuscript scattered across it.
この世紀末に
Even though the
まだ
century's
ペンで
almost
書いて
over,
るの
you still write with a pen? The black cat spoke as it tore the dried plum apart with its mouth.
物語はインクで記す
Tales are to be written with ink.
それが私の
To
不
me,
変のル
that
ー
is
ル
an unbreakable rule.
インクで書いて同じ
So
もの
you
をキ
write
ー
it
ボー
once
ド
with
で打ち
ink,
直す
then
の
type the whole thing over again with a keyboard.
バカな二度手間だわ
Pretty stupid doing the same thing twice.
ならばな
has
ぜ
its
人の
uses.
子は心の中で物語を
In
描
that case,
き
why does the child of man drop a tale in their
わざわざ
mind
キーボードで打ち直す
and then
という
spit the
の
whole
か
thing out again on a keyboard?
人の子の二度手間
How
もバ
foolish
カ
of
バ
them
カ
to
し
do
い
the same thing twice.
ならあんたは三度
Look
手
at
間
it
って
that
わ
way,
けだ
and you're doing the same thing 3 times. That was a good one. Even as Hachijo laughed, her fountain pen was already sliding across the page. Beautiful letters appeared almost as fast and proficiently as a typewriter. Only humans called their creations manuscripts. With her fountain pen and writing paper, she was creating a world. As she did, the hands of the clock would spin around like a top. The lights and shadows that came into the window changed their angle so fast, they might have been the hands of the clock themselves. Slowly, she drew a large X across the tightly packed words on the paper.
気乗りしないの
Having trouble?
うまく書
I
けない
can't draw it out well.
人を楽しませ
Writing
る
a
原
manuscript
稿
to
とは
please people is
めん
truly
ど
a
くさい
pain.
ものだな。何しろ普段
After all,
人に
I
読ませ
usually
る
don't
ために
I
文字など
don't
書
usually
か
write
ない
for
で
other
な。
people to read.
あんた
You should
自
try
分が
writing
何を
down
言って
whatever
る
it
の
is
か
you're saying on that
いっ
manuscript
ぺん原
paper.
稿用紙に書いてみるといいわ。
Berncastle curled up on the sofa, a mocking smile on her face. Normally, whenever Hachijo was writing, Berncastle would never let herself be noticed, much less talk to her. However, Berncastle realized that the other was apparently getting bored with her manuscript, so she yawned and started talking.
何を書いてるの？
What is it you're writing anyway?
人の子に捧
A
げる
tale
物
to
語。
give a child of man.
どこの人の子？
Which child of man?
我に朗読
It's
を
a tale
捧
I
げたる
promised to
ミ
write
コ
for
に
Umineko,
約
who
束し
once
た
read
物語
for me.
だ。あ
Ah,
あ、まだ書いて
you're
る。
still writing that?
何を書け
I
ば
can't
あれは
think of
満
anything
足す
to
る
write
の。私には
that
も
would
う
give her
わか
satisfaction.
らぬのだ。またあうあうが
Looks
投げ
like
出した
Ao
わ。
Ao's giving up yet
あ
again.
んたはいつだって
You always promise to write a story, then get stuck before you're
最
finished
後ま
and
で
give
書
up.
ききれなくなって投げ出すのね。投げ出さぬから
If I had
こうして
given up,
悩
I
んで
wouldn't be worrying over it like this.
園児が望む物語は
There's only one tale that
最
Angie's
初から
wanted
一
from the
つしかない
beginning.
わ。一なる
The
真実
tale
の
of
物
the
語
single truth.
園児は
Angie said she wanted to know what happened that day. No matter how many tales you write distorting the truth, she'll never be satisfied. And yet, I do think my tales are far more interesting than the single truth. Interest and truth are two separate things. Angie doesn't want to read an interesting tale. And I promised that child of man that I would write a tale for her sake. So I'm writing a tale to please her. No matter how interesting or uninteresting it is, everything you write is an illusion. Angie doesn't want any of that. Haven't you figured that out yet? The book of the single truth was written by Ushumiya Eva. Hidden amongst a pile of writing paper was Eva's diary. Furthermore, the one who wrote this passed away without revealing it to anyone. Being the humble writer that I am, I would like to respect that. Don't make me laugh. This is coming from the person who entertains herself by taking a tail and tearing out its guts. The truth is uninteresting. Is that your opinion after tearing apart the guts of so many tales? You might as well say that. With a self-mocking laugh, Hachijo set down her fountain pen. I certainly have aged. The first thing that age taught me was that not knowing is more precious than knowing. That definitely sounds like something an old person would say, but I'll bite. What do you mean? Knowing and not knowing. These two things have a one-way relationship. True. It's possible to switch from not knowing to knowing, but you can't do it the other way around. When I realized that, I saw the noble purity resembling virginity that exists in not knowing. In my attempts to escape boredom, I've torn apart and eaten the guts of as many games and tales as there are stars in the sky. But always, my relief from boredom is short-lived. It's also fleeting that I've started to ignore each tale as an individual story. That's right. If you eat a cat, then you only get to enjoy it for one night. But if you let it live, it might start calling you names and getting sarcastic. Indeed. Even the annoying way they break into your sweets cupboard and sneak into your bed can be part of their charm. Hachijo looked around at the books covering every square inch of the room, then softly petted the cat's back. I might have been able to enjoy a single tale much longer and much more deeply. As I've eaten my way through countless tales to escape boredom, I haven't really been eating them. I've just been killing them. And in the end, they'll kill me back. Hachijo laughed with self-derision. Even in Beato's game, he tried to tear the guts out. I just wanted to check my answers. I did try to do it in a way that respected Beatrice, the weaver of this tale. Yeah, I think it was pretty well read. All done so that people who didn't understand wouldn't figure it out. It would make for a better tale if Angie learns the truth, or if she doesn't. To be honest, I don't know anymore. So, fully aware that you'll scorn me for it, I've decided to stop writing the rest of this tale. What do you mean? I won't write it. I will merely record it. The tale that Ushima Angie weaves herself. So, you're going to do that sort of thing again? After growing tired of 1,000 years of life, I've decided that choosing not to know the truth is the more noble path. However, I now see that it isn't fair to force my opinion on Angie, who hasn't lived even 100 years. So, you're going to leave it in Angie's care? Yes. I will silently record it as it plays out. If you're leaving it to Angie, then the rest of this tale is pretty much set in stone, right? So it would seem. Let it be so. After all, in the end, a tale that a child man weaves for herself will be more fun than any story I could create. In that case, why don't you lend a hand in Angie's tale? You've already given yourself a role in it, haven't you? So, is it my role to bring this tale to its conclusion? If you started it, kind of, yeah? Come on, there's no way for someone in Beato's game to talk. It's your job to tear the guts out of the cat box. I think with that, I'll call it a day. I'll call it a day. I get the feeling I'm really close to the truth. And also, yeah, that's exactly what it was. There is no truth. I definitely got this feeling much more so in the Battler vs. Erica chained room. Hey, Beatrice, welcome. Hello. You've been watching the whole time, or you just sneak up on me? But the Battler vs. Erica, when he was stuck in the chained room, and they were coming up with Canon did it, there was no answer. They backed themselves into a corner because they didn't actually have the answer in place. They were making it up as they went. If that's the case, there is no truth until it's all set in stone. And that goes against, I would be one of the goats, fantasy is fiction. Unless the world has fantasy as an option, it's not an option. But yeah, it's basically amounts to, if it can't exist, it can't be discussed. You can't rule it out if there's no possible way of doing so. I don't know. We'll continue. I think I'll do this again tomorrow. A morning stream for tomorrow, and continue on with this. I got the feeling I'm really close to the end here, but I don't know where or how far I am. Anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. All that stuff. Hope you enjoyed, and apparently don't stop thinking. I'm not clever enough to come up with all of the ways of solving those mysteries, and I accept that. I don't say that it's pointless, but it's above what I could come up with. Or, not a waste of time, but not worth my time to fully invest myself into the process type of thing. Not pointless, but not my cup of tea, I guess is a way to put it. Anyway, see you later, guys. We'll get to the end of this one way or the other. Take care.